and in compliance with the Department of Health's advisory to avoid physical mass gatherings, the company will conduct its annual stockholders meeting as an online video streaming meeting. Keeping in mind the precept of innovation being part of our core values, we have made arrangements for this meeting to proceed properly despite the travel restrictions and safety issues that have affected all of us. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, our very first annual stockholders meeting conducted entirely through video conference. By virtue of the authority granted to me, I hereby call to order the 2020 Annual Stockholders Meeting of Aboitiz Power Corporation. May I now call on our Corporate Secretary, Mr. Manuel Alberto R. Colaico, to certify to the sending out of notices for this Annual Stockholders Meeting and, if a quorum exists, to conduct this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certify that the notice and agenda for the 2020 Annual Stockholders Meeting was disclosed on the Philippine Stock Exchange website and uploaded on the company's website immediately after the special board meeting approving the agenda on March 6, 2020. The notice and agenda for the meeting were also published March 26, 2020 in the Philippine Daily Inquirer, the Philippine Star, and the Business Mirror. The notice and agenda were further uploaded on the company's website, sent to stockholders electronically via email, and broadcast through the PTC platform for stockholders under PCD and broker accounts. As an additional measure, a QR code of the company's information sheet was also published on April 2, 2020 in 3 newspapers of general circulation. The notices were sent out at least 21 days prior to the annual stockholders meeting in accordance with the requirements of the revised corporation code and the applicable SEC regulations at the time. Through the notice, the stockholders were informed that due to the ECQ in effect in Luzon, the company will not be conducting a physical annual stockholders meeting, and instead, the 2020 ASM will be streamed live. Stockholders have also been notified that they could cast their votes either through proxy, remotely, or in absentia using the online voting portal, votingportal.aboitiz.com. In accordance with the company's bylaws, the stockholders were given until April 20, 2020 to submit scanned copies of their proxies. In view of the ECQ, the company waived the submission of hard copies of the proxies and other supporting documents. Votes cast through proxies and received through the voting portal as of 2 p.m. today, April 27, 2020, will be flashed on the screen for each agenda item. And to allow more stockholders to vote, the voting portal remains open during this afternoon's ASM, and stockholders may continue to vote. The final tally of votes will be reflected in the minutes of the 2020 ASM. Mr. Chairman, I certify that we have a quorum to conduct this meeting. As of 2 p.m. today, April 27, 10,911,122 shares are in absentia, and 6,572,393,293 shares are represented by proxy, for a total of 6,583,304,450 shares. And these have all been registered for today's annual stockholders meeting. These shares constitute 89.46%, or more than 2/3, of the 7,358,604,307 total outstanding shares of the company entitled to vote. And these amounts have been verified and confirmed by the representatives of Luis Cañete and Company, our Board of Election Inspectors, and who are present with us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now proceed to the reading and approval of the minutes of last year's annual stockholders meeting held on April 22, 2019. Copies of the minutes, together with the voting results, have been uploaded on the company's website the day after the 2019 ASM. The minutes were also distributed to the stockholders through the information statement.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I am Jake Osho, proxy for stockholder Golda Gabriel. I move that the reading of the minutes of the 2019 annual stockholders meeting be dispensed with and that the same be approved.
Mr. Chairman, I am John Alcinas, proxy for stockholder Glim Reyuyan. I second the motion.
There is a motion duly made and seconded that the minutes of the 2019 annual stockholders meeting be approved. Mr. Corporate Secretary, were there any objections to the approval of this motion?
Mr. Chairman, based on the proxies received and the votes recorded through the voting portal, 6,583,000,000 shares, 304,415 shares, or 100% of the shares present and in attendance are in favor of approving the motion. The summary of the votes cast as well as the shareholders' resolution is flashed on the screen.
Since the affirmative votes outnumber the no votes, the motion is carried. We will now proceed with the President's report. I call on Aboitiz Power's President and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Emmanuel B. Rubio, to give his report. For the orderly conduct of this meeting, we will entertain questions on the President's report and on other matters after the conclusion of this meeting. This is in line with the company's practice previous physical ASMs. For purposes of this virtual ASM, you can send comments or questions through the chat box, and our moderator will read out your questions during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow shareholders, team members, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Aboitiz Power Corporation Annual Stockholders Meeting. Today, I will report to you the financial and operating results of your company for the year 2019. Your company ended 2019 with consolidated revenues of 126 billion pesos, 5% lower year-on-year due to capacities on outage and lower hydrology. Meanwhile, the company's consolidated EBITDA declined from 51 billion to 45 billion pesos, a 13% decrease from the previous year. This resulted from the high cost of replacement power, a decline in the availability of our coal facilities, and lower revenues from the spot market sales. Aboitiz Power's consolidated net income for 2019 decreased by 20% to 17 billion pesos. Correspondingly, earnings per share decreased from last year's 2 pesos 95 centavos per share to 2 pesos 35 centavos per share. With a downward movement in net income, our return on equity was at 14%. Stripping out non-recurring items, Aboitiz Power's core net income for the year stood at 17 billion pesos, 30% lower than the previous year. 2019 was a very challenging year for Aboitiz Power. Availability and reliability performance fell below our targets. Outages and high spot market prices affected our performance. We have since resolved our technical issues, fortified our bench, and have further strengthened governance across different parts of the business. We are coming out of this stronger than ever before. Last March 2020, your board approved a cash dividend of 1 peso 18 centavos per share. Total dividends paid this year, which is 9 billion pesos, is equivalent to and consistent with our policy of paying one half of your company's previous year's net income. Indeed, it was a tough year for Aboitiz Power, and it considerably affected our stock performance. But despite the short-term impact on our share price, the long-term value we created for our shareholders remains intact. From a 10-year share price perspective, your company clearly outperformed the market. Including dividends received, Aboitiz Power's total shareholder return was 19%, compounded annually for the last 10-year period. Moving on to our operating results, Aboitiz Power's capacity sales in 2019 increased to 3,184 megawatts, 1% higher compared to the previous year. Energy sales decreased by 3% to 20,480 gigawatt hours. For our generation business group, during the first quarter of the year, the country experienced a power supply shortage due to the unplanned shutdown of some baseload power plants, among which was one unit of Pagbilao coal-fired power plant. But we remain focused on surveying our customers by providing them with stable, power that we purchased from the spot market. 2019 also saw the start of commercial operations of the 340 megawatt Thermal Visayas baseload power plant in Toledo, Cebu, and the 19 megawatt La Trinidad Hydro in Benguet. We also switched on the 200 kilowatt pilot floating solar project in Ramon Isabela of SNAP. To provide customers with more valuable options for their power needs, we have signed more contracts under the Retail Competition and Open Access Program. For the year, we will complete the construction and synchronization of one unit of GN Power Dingginin, a supercritical coal-fired power plant in Bataan. We will also expand our clean energy portfolio aggressively in line with the government's renewable portfolio standards and green energy option program. By the end of 2020, Aboitiz Power will own 4,432 megawatts of attributable capacity. Currently, 968 megawatts of this pertains to GNPD and is under construction. Unit 1 will synchronize and earn commissioning revenues by the fourth quarter of 2020 and will commence commercial operations by the first quarter of 2021. Unit 2 will synchronize and earn commissioning revenues by the first quarter of 2021, and commercial operations will commence by the second quarter of 2021. For our distribution business group, Aboitiz Power's attributable sales for 2019 was at 5,851 gigawatt hours, a 6% increase from 2018. This was driven by an increase in consumption across all customer segments, up 7% for residential, 5% for commercial, and 6% for industrial. 2019 also saw a distribution business group grow its customer base by 3% from the previous year and reaching the 1 million customer mark. As of December 31, 2019, the company's consolidated assets amounted to 410 billion, a 5% increase compared to the year-end 2018 level. Net debt was at 187 billion pesos, 13% higher than the year-end 2018 level, while equity attributable to equity holders of the parent decreased by 2% to 126 billion pesos. The company's net debt to equity ratio was at 1.4 times as of December 31, 2019, while the current ratio stood at 1.5 times. Together with our partners at the beginning of 2020, Aboitiz Power allocated 41 billion in capital expenditure for the year. This is a 17% increase from the 35 billion utilized in 2019 and is primarily for the construction of GN Power Dingginin facilities. However, we are reviewing the schedule of the rest of our capital expenditures given the current situation. The past year saw the Aboitiz Group maintain its level 4 rating in the Risk Maturity Index. Reaching level 4 means there is a clear understanding of the organization's key risks and also a consistent execution of activities to address these risks. Following the assessment, the group will closely manage and monitor the following top risks: regulatory, talent management, information security, and competition risks. For more information on our risk management program, please refer to page 148 of our colored annual report. Aboitiz Power is a major partner of Aboitiz Foundation, which is the orchestrator of the Aboitiz Group's dynamic and independent CSR ecosystem. The foundation is guided by CSR 2.0 parameters to ensure that we achieve inclusive impact. These parameters include the alignment with the group's core business and the foundation's program pillars, scalability, team member engagement, and the provision of long-term benefits for our partner communities. In 2019, 41% of our CSR projects reached CSR 2.0 status. This include projects such as Propulsive College Scholarship, Mahaling Pagkaing Atin, Classroom Rewiring, and the community-based disaster risk reduction and management training. Beyond CSR, we are looking at a more robust way of operating our businesses with strong governance to ensure sustained environmental and social impact. The Aboitiz Group believes in striking a balance between the interests of people, planet, and profit, and has made proactive investments to ensure that our success in business continues to bring meaningful societal change. Across our strategic business units, we identify meaningful collaborations to support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is ultimately part of the way we have been doing business for more than a century. Towards this end, we have refreshed our ESG roadmap for the coming decade to include three new commitments. First, to improve our ESG ratings and improve and sustain investment grade for our providers of capital over the medium to long term. To do this, we improved our data reporting and created website pages specific to our ESG performance. We will also include sharing our OSHA's performance, which we have been measuring in the last 10 years, and the primary KPI for our organization. We remain committed to mitigating our occupational health and safety risk and eliminate hazards to provide a safe and healthy work environment for our people and our partners. Second, to explore how we can adopt the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures over the next few years within the context of our overall ESG strategy. Third, to refresh our material issues and their supporting programs and metrics and extend our targets to 10 years. Your company will continue to advance business and communities in the next 10 years and beyond. To provide transparency in our ESG efforts, we have published our ESG data on both AEV and Aboitiz Power websites. These pages contain our performance, general policies, and processes on a wide array of sustainability concerns of the company. Our aim is to provide clear, timely, and accessible information to our global audience and increasing demand from ESG raters, insurers, institutional investors, and stockholders for corporate sustainability transitions and its disclosures. We believe that our transparency provides greater confidence to our stockholders in knowing that they are investing in a company that upholds the highest ethical standards. Our strategic direction is geared towards delivering EBITDA growth and a major shift in Aboitiz Power's energy mix. To achieve this, we will grow our capacity from 4,432 megawatts to 9,300 megawatts. From this, we expect our international business to comprise 13% of our portfolio, and about 65% of the additional capacity between 2020 and 2029 will be clean energy, resulting in a shift in our overall capacity mix to almost 1-to-1 thermal to clean energy. With our new targets in place and with the strong support of our team members and stakeholders, we are confident that Aboitiz Power will sustain its growth momentum for many years. We take pride in what has always been our competitive advantage, our team, driven by our 1AP culture of high performance, owner's mindset, learning and growth, atmosphere, and our values of integrity, teamwork, innovation, responsibility, and service excellence. We have seen 1AP at work, but even more so during the COVID-19 pandemic situation. With our teamwork, we were able to help our host beneficiaries optimize their ER1-94 funds for COVID-19 response. ER1-94 is a program of the Department of Energy that entitles host communities of power generation projects to 1 centavo per every kilowatt hour sold. About half a billion pesos worth of ER1-94 funds from Aboitiz Power facilities are currently available to our host beneficiaries across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao for the COVID-19 response efforts. Recognizing the critical role of power supply in these challenging times, Aboitiz Power continues to operate in strict compliance with the protocols and guidelines of the government's community quarantine. To keep our team members and facilities safe, the following have been implemented: safeguards and support in place for mission critical teams, restricted non-essential travels and travel declaration by all employees, implemented safety protocols with suppliers and business partners, restricted external access to offices and facilities and strict gate screening for illness symptoms, optimized the use of digital tools and channels for internal and external meetings, cancellation of group events, regular disinfection and germ-proofing of facilities, buildings, and company vehicles, provision of personal protective equipment and other viral prevention items, and all team members are here and abroad both constantly reminded of personal hygiene practices and precautionary measures and are given regular updates by the company's COVID-19 Technical Working Group. All of these have been possible because of our early adoption of a solid digital strategy across the Aboitiz Group. Our digital resources have allowed us to work seamlessly away from our offices and have kept our teams all over the country informed, connected, and engaged. We have been able to work in the safety of our homes while maintaining a high level of service for our customers and communities. Our digital initiatives for plant operations play a crucial role in keeping our facilities up and running in these trying times. We are able to operate some of our plants remotely and monitor the efficiency and availability to ensure that we continue to deliver power supply when it is most needed. We thank all our team members for their hard work and commitment to ensuring business continuity in an unusual business environment. We would like to thank I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank Miguel Aboitiz, who will be retiring at the end of April. Most of his 32 years of valued service in the Aboitiz Group was with Aboitiz Power. Miguel played a significant role in the initial public offerings of AEV in 1994 and AP in 1997. He also played a key role in Aboitiz Power's business development activities and led the energy trading and sales department beginning 2009 to provide revenue for power plants purchased from the National Power Corporation's privatization program. I have learned a lot from Miguel. He is always ready to share his insights on matters relating to business and even personal interests. He is our depository of knowledge, and we will surely miss him. Thank you, Miguel, for your contribution, particularly for driving the growth that we are enjoying today. We wish Miguel only the best in the next leg of his life journey. We also thank Eramon Aboitiz, who retired at the end of 2019. Monju has led our company towards growth for the past 10 years and has given us over 40 years of exemplary service. We would not be at the level of a company we are today, which many of us never dreamed of without Monju's foresight, intellectual capacity, and attitude of always finding ways, while at the same time maintaining integrity and the family values. Monju, you are a wonderful leader, a role model, a boss, and a friend. You are everything that one can ask for in a good mentor, and you have allowed us to grow and become professionals in the mold of an Aboitiz leader. I have enjoyed working with you and will cherish the memories and the experience. I will be forever grateful for your support, trust, and confidence. We thank Monju for all his contributions and we wish him good fortune in the next stage of his voyage. We in the Aboitiz Group believe in promoting balance between economic, societal, and environmental stewardship. We drive change for a better world by advancing business and communities. This year, Aboitiz and Company, our ultimate parent, is celebrating its first century as we continue to brave new horizons and carry on our legacy of excellence that has stood the test of time. This would not have been possible without your support. On behalf of the Aboitiz Power Board, I would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to all of you, our valued shareholders. Thank you for your continued trust and confidence in Aboitiz Power, especially those who have been with us since we took EP public more than 10 years ago. We are committed to delivering results that will reward the trust you have placed in our organization. From business as usual, we are now doing business unusual in the challenging business environment that we currently in. We have prepared for this and we will get through this. Tough times, but we are tougher together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manny. The next item on the agenda is the approval of Aboitiz Power's annual report and audited financial statements as of December 31, 2019. The annual report, together with the financial statements, were reproduced in the information statement distributed to the stockholders and uploaded in the company's website. A quick response or QR code of the information statement is published in 3 newspapers of general circulation.
Mr. Chairman, for the record and in compliance with the requirements of the revised Corporation Code, we wish to inform stockholders that the following information was included in the company's information statement. A, the minutes of the 2019 ASM. B, security ownership of the top 20 stockholders as well as the security ownership of directors and officers of the company. C, the attestation and verification of the President and Internal Audit Head that the system of risk management, internal controls, compliance, and governance processes provide reasonable assurance that the company's risks are managed to an acceptable level. D, the audited financial statements for the period ending December 31, 2019, as audited by the company's independent external auditor, SGB and Company. E, the dividends declared and paid for the past 3 years, as well as the company's dividend payment. A statement of the external audit and non-audit fees. G, profiles of the company's directors and officers, as well as the profiles of nominees to be elected for this year's board. Their profiles include their qualifications, experience, length of service in the company, educational background, and their board and committee membership in the company and in other organizations, including other listed companies or government positions, if any. H, the attendance report indicating the attendance of each director at each of the meetings of the board, its committees, and its regular or special stockholders meetings. I, appraisal and performance reports for the board and the criteria and procedure for assessment. J, the report on the annual compensation of each director, as well as the aggregate compensation of the president and CEO and the top 4 highly compensated officers of the company. And K, disclosures on related party transactions, including dealings with directors.
Thank you for that, Mickey. Is there any motion for the approval of the company's 2019 annual report and financial statements?
Mr. Chairman, I am Ria Alazas, stockholder. I move for the approval of Aboitiz Power's annual report and audited financial statements as of December 31, 2019.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I am Shari Salazar, proxy for stockholder Adelia Villegas, seconding the motion.
There is a motion duly made and seconded for the approval of the company's 2019 annual report and audited financial statements. Mr. Corporate Secretary, were there any objections to the approval of this motion?
Mr. Chairman, based on the proxies received and the votes recorded through the voting portal, 6,577,961,015 shares, or 99.92%, are in favor of approving the motion. A A summary of the votes cast as well as the shareholders' resolution is flashed on the screen.
Since the affirmative votes outnumber the no votes, the motion is carried. The next item of business is the appointment of the company's external auditor for the year 2020. The Board Audit Committee recommended the appointment of CCIP Gores Velayo, SGV, as the company's external auditor for the year 2020. On evaluation, the committee was satisfied with SGV's services and performance as the company's external auditor. In the board meeting last March 6, 2020, the Board of Directors discussed the Audit Committee's recommendation and resolved to reappoint SGV as the company's external auditor for 2020. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to endorse for approval by the stockholders the reappointment of SGV as the company's external auditor for 2020. Any motion for the appointment of SGV as the company's external auditor?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Marcia Callan, proxy for stockholder Catherine Alvarez, and I move for the appointment of CCIP Gores Velayo and Company as the company's external auditor for the year 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I am Kira Wong, proxy for stockholder Maricar Le. I second the motion.
There's a motion duly made and seconded for the appointment of CCIP Gores and Velayo and Company as the company's external auditor for 2020. Mr. Corporate Secretary, were there any objections to approval of this motion?
Mr. Chairman, based on the proxies received and the votes recorded through the voting portal, 6,300,268,359 shares, or 95.70% are in favor. The summary of the votes as well as of the shareholders' resolution is flashed on the screen.
Since the affirmative votes outnumber the no votes, the motion is carried. We now go to the next item on the agenda, which is the election of the members of the Board of Directors for the term 2020 to 2021. We call on the Corporate Secretary to explain the procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The company's amended bylaws allow any stockholder to nominate candidates for the Board of Directors. Article 1, Section 7 of the company's amended bylaws states that nominations for the election of directors for the succeeding year must be received by the Corporate Secretary no less than 15 working days prior to the annual meeting of stockholders, except as may be provided by the Board of Directors in appropriate guidelines that it may promulgate from time to time in compliance with law. In accordance with the company's amended bylaws and the existing nomination guidelines, all stockholders were given up to April 2, 2020 to submit respective nominees for membership in the Board of Directors. For the nomination of independent directors, the guidelines for the nomination and election of independent directors provide that nominations are to be accepted starting January 1 of the year in which the independent directors to serve, with the nominations closed by February 15 of the same year, unless the period is extended by unanimous vote of the Corporate Governance Committee members. After proper screening and approval by the Board Corporate Governance Committee on February 19, 2020, the following have been determined to be qualified for nomination as directors of the company: Ramon I. Aboitiz, Mikel A. Aboitiz, Enrique M. Aboitiz, Emmanuel V. Rubio, Jaime Jose Y. Aboitiz, and Danel C. Aboitiz. The following persons have also been determined to be qualified for nomination as independent directors: Romeo E. Bernardo, Carlos C. Ejercito, and Eric Ramon O. Recto. As mentioned earlier, the complete profiles of the 9 nominees were included as part of the information statement distributed to the stockholders.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. I'm Jake Posho. Since there are no other nominees and I find the nominees to be qualified and highly competent, I move to elect the following nominees as members of the Board of Directors: Ramon I. Aboitiz, Mikel A. Aboitiz, Enrique M. Aboitiz, Emmanuel V. Rubio, Jaime Jose Y. Aboitiz, and Danel C. Aboitiz. The following as independent directors: Romeo E. Bernardo, Carlos C. Ejercito, and Eric Ramon O. Recto.
I am John Asinas, Mr. Chairman, and I second the motion.
There is a motion duly made and seconded for the election of the 9 nominees mentioned as members of the Board of Directors. Mr. Corporate Secretary, please provide us with the votes received.
Mr. Chairman, the results for the election of the members of the Board of Directors, which have been certified and verified by Luis Cañete and Company, our Board of Election Inspectors, based on the total proxies received and the votes recorded through the voting portal, is being flashed on the screen. These voting results will also be uploaded in the company's website after the ASM today. Based on the total votes cast and recorded, the 9 nominees are therefore elected as members of the Board of Directors of the company for the 2020 to 2021 term.
Thank you, Mickey. On behalf of the rest of my colleagues in the Board of Directors, I would like to thank all of you for your continued trust and confidence. The next item on the agenda is the amendment of the company's Articles of Incorporation. I will now call on the Corporate Secretary to explain the rationale for each proposed amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment to Article 4 of the Articles of Incorporation to extend the company's corporate term to perpetual existence is intended to align the Articles of Incorporation with the provisions of the revised Corporation Code. The amendments to Articles 2 and 7, which are to include in the primary purpose the company's power to act as guarantor or surety to the loans and obligations of its affiliates and associates, and to amend the features of its preferred shares, respectively, are intended to give the company additional flexibility in its capital and fundraising activities. The Board of Directors approved these proposed amendments to the articles during its meeting on March 6, 2020. Shown on the screen are the proposed amendments to Articles 2, 4, and 7 of the Articles of Incorporation, with the amendments underscored. The language of the proposed amendments was also included in the company's information statement distributed to stockholders.
Thank you for that explanation, Mickey. Is there any motion for the amendments to Article 2, 4, and 7 of the company's Articles of Incorporation?
Mr. Chairman, I am Ria Alazas, and I move to approve the amendments to Articles 2, 4, and 7 of the Articles of Incorporation in accordance with the language flashed on screen and as stated in the information statement.
Mr. Chairman, I am Shari Salazar and I second the motion.
There is a motion duly made and seconded for the approval of the amendments to the company's Articles of Incorporation. Mr. Corporate Secretary, were there any objections to the approval of this motion recorded?
Mr. Chairman, based on the proxies received and the votes recorded through the voting portal, 6,396,396,652 shares, or 97.16%, are in favor of approving the motion. The summary of the votes cast, as well as the shareholder resolution, is flashed on the screen.
Since the affirmative votes outnumber the no votes, the motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the ratification of all acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, officers, and management for the year 2019, and including all acts up to today, April 27, 2020. Mr. Corporate Secretary, please explain this agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, the acts, resolutions, and proceedings requested to be ratified are the regular corporate acts performed by the board, officers, and management of the company in the ordinary course of its business. For reference, the list of resolutions approved by the board for the period covered are enumerated in the information statement distributed to stockholders. The company also regularly discloses material transactions approved by the Board of Directors, and these disclosures are available for viewing and download at the company's website, www.aboitizpower.com. Other than matters approved in the ordinary course of business, we wish to inform the stockholders that the Board of Directors, using its delegated power, approved the amendment to the company's bylaws to allow the attendance, participation, and voting of stockholders by remote communication or in absentia starting from today's annual stockholders meeting, which is meant to align the company's bylaws with the provisions of the revised Corporation Code. We wish to note that on May 18, 2009, stockholders representing at least 2/3 of the issued and outstanding capital stock of the company approved the delegated authority of the board to amend or repeal the company's bylaws or to adopt new bylaws. The same delegated authority was renewed during the company's 2015 ASM by an affirmative vote by stockholders representing 94.35% of the stockholders present in person or by proxy during that meeting. Pursuant to this authority and to align with the provisions of the revised corporation code, the board has approved the amendment to the company's bylaws.
Thank you for that explanation, Mickey. Is there any motion for the ratification of all acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, officers, and management for the year 2019, and including all acts up to today, April 27, 2020?
Mr. Chairman, I am Mark Sakalan, and I move for the ratification of all acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, officers, and management for the year 2019, and including all acts up to today, April 27, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Kira Wong and I second the motion.
There is a motion duly made and seconded for the ratification of all acts, resolutions, and proceedings of the Board of Directors, officers, and management for the year 2019, and including all acts up to today, April 27, 2020. Mr. Corporate Secretary, were there any objections to the approval of this motion?
Mr. Chairman, based on the proxies received and the votes recorded through the voting portal, 6,573,921,196 shares, or 99.86%, are in favor of approving the motion. The summary of the votes cast, as well as the shareholders' resolution, is flashed on the screen.
Since the affirmative votes outnumber the no votes, the motion is carried. The last item on the agenda is other business. Are there other matters that the body would like to take up?
Mr. Chairman, I am Shari Salazar. There being no other matters to be taken up, I move for the adjournment of the 2020 Annual Stockholders Meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I am John Asinas. I second the motion.
The meeting is hereby adjourned. I now request the ASM Secretariat to flash on the screen the votes recorded for each of the items submitted for approval as verified by our Board of Election Inspectors. To all the stockholders who have participated in this meeting, thank you for sharing this historic moment with us. We consider your attendance as a vote of confidence to the company. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the company, please allow me to recognize and acknowledge all the Aboitiz team members who have worked very tirelessly to make this first ever virtual ASM and online voting portal possible. Thank you, and I hope you and your loved ones remain safe in these trying times.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no other matters for discussion, we would like to raise some questions we received from the stockholders during the meeting that we have today.
Please proceed, Mr. Moderator, and let us know to whom the questions are addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we proceed, I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our friends in the media who have joined our very first virtual ASM today. I'll go now to the questions. So we have a number of similar questions, and they're basically centered around how was your business affected by the extended community quarantine? And this question we're asking came from Mr. Jake Rocio, and I think this is addressed to our CEO, Mr. Manny Rubio.
Thank you, Judd. Was expecting that question. I guess that's in everyone's mind today. Well, the first step we took was to secure the safety of our team members. There is no denying that COVID-19 will have a negative impact on our financial performance. But protecting our organization's greatest asset, our team members, is the best way to survive this pandemic and get back on track quicker when this is over. Currently, we continue to operate with our solid business continuity plans in accordance with the protocols and guidelines of the government's community quarantine. We provide the country with much needed power for hospitals, for government institutions, and critical businesses. So we're operating all our power plants with lockdown facilities and keeping our operators and team members in our facilities on 14-day cycles. As far as demand is concerned, the curtailed economic activity brought about by the ECQ have, of course, resulted to lower demand and consumption, which in turn have affected revenue targets for our business, both generation and distribution, and even in our retail electricity supply business units. But good news, though, we're seeing an uptick in demand, mainly brought about by some return to normalcy in some businesses that we're seeing, and of course the increasing temperature. But that's mainly the main reason for the increase in demand. And with lower demand, of course, it resulted to softer Western prices, and we expect this to prevail in the coming months, if not in coming weeks, if not months. As far as collection is concerned, of course, ERC and DOE issued advisories with extension of bill payments and collection. And the said advisories mentioned to provide the same grace period to all private and public corporations in the power sector for their obligations, interests, penalties, fees, and charges. So so we initially adjust our collection targets downwards to reflect these advisories. But again, good news, we are seeing more collection than initially forecasted, and we hope this trend continues. No? So right now, we are already working on our business recovery plans to allow us to take advantage of these promising developments and keep us on track with our goals despite the unusual business situation. And we have a solid, competent, dedicated, and highly engaged team. And I'm confident that we can get through this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. We have another question here, Mr. Chairman, also addressed to our CEO, Mr. Manny Rubio. And it's coming from Casimir Kira Wong. And the question is, the lockdown was so sudden. How was AP able to cope?
Well, as I mentioned, we made sure that we first took care of our people. It's actually business unusual, as I've been saying, in an unusual business environment. Our plants continue to run, but to ensure that we limit the possibility of an infection at the site, we requested our team members to actually work and stay at the site on 14-day cycles, while the rest of the organization are actually working from home. And the only reason why we're able to do this is, as I mentioned in the report earlier, is we are one of the early adopters to digital. Right? We have digital tools that are in place to allow us to seamlessly work work remotely. We are operating some of the facilities remotely as well, and monitoring performance of those plants remotely, all of them. So and then moving forward, this would be the focus, and we'll continue with this digital initiative. And I'm sure this pandemic is probably one of the first that we've seen this happen. Hopefully not, but I'm sure there will be some of these in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. I think we have time for one more question. And once again, this is addressed to our CEO, Mr. Manny Rubio. And the question is from Ria Alasas. And the question, it says here, energy companies are increasing, if not totally shifting their capacities to renewable energy. What about Aboitiz Power?
Well, as you well know, we have significant capacities in our thermal portfolio. Today, it's the default option, and probably even in the next few years. It's making sure that we keep the support for the country's growing demand for reliable and affordable energy, and That's the option. But allow me to point out that Aboitiz Power is actually a pioneer in renewable energy. We have the largest capacity in terms of nameplate capacity in terms of renewable energy, and we are going to continue growing our renewable portfolio. We're focusing on participating and play a significant role in the program of the government on RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standards, and the Green Energy Option Program. And plus our focus growth area overseas, no? And we've mentioned these countries in previous briefings. We expect that our 13% of our portfolio by 2020, the next 10 years, will be international, and all of those will be renewable. So that we estimate that 65% of our new capacity investments will be renewable energy. That by 2020, the ratio between renewable and thermal will be very close to 1-to-1, thermal to renewable.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. That is the last question we have time for today. So we've received a number of other questions here. We would just like to promise everyone who has sent in their question that we will respond to all the questions and answer today via email. And if you have additional questions that you have not yet sent to us right now, please feel free to reach out to the questions named in the slide that we are projecting before you today. So that is all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Of you in the flesh at our next annual stockholders meeting. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.